Discover the incredible moment when a shy janitor's lullaby transformed a CEO's heart. You won't believe what happens next. Tom had long since grown accustomed to the quietude of the high-stakes corporate law firm. Night after night, standing under the fluorescent glow, he worked. Sweeping, mopping, and endlessly humming lullabies passed down from his beloved grandmother. Each note drifted through the polished marble corridors with a gentleness that stood in stark contrast to the ruthless ambition that filled the building during the day. But tonight, under the weight of a storm bruising the skyline outside, his soft voice felt heavier, underscoring the emptiness that loomed like thunder. Meanwhile, in her extravagant office, Emma, the firm's CEO, sat engulfed in a mountain of paperwork. A world of expectation strained against her, heavier than the storm pounding on the window. Her old man, a retired teacher, had long stopped calling her, resigned to the notion of her chosen path. Their relationship haunted her. Each missed call echoed with disappointment, whispering what remained unsaid, the love she took for granted. As she stared down the sheets scattered across her desk, raindrops thrummed against the glass, each one reminding her of a lullaby she once knew, a melody that felt almost within reach. The sound of Tom's voice intertwined with the storm, a blanket of warmth cutting through her isolation. She hesitated, the duel in her heart palpable. The harsher part of her was tethered to her ambition, while the softest part yearned for connection, for a semblance of the familial ties that now felt like gossamer threads slipping away. His voice folded around her like an embrace, igniting a yearning for solace. It struck her as raw. Was she truly so overwhelmed that she needed refuge in a janitor's lullaby? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Every moment hung in the air, thick with tension. Emma pushed aside the paperwork and ventured out from her office, drawn like a moth to the comforting glow of Tom's unwavering spirit. The thought of confronting him flickered in her mind, a question constantly nudging her: could this ordinary janitor truly offer her what she desperately craved? With each step, doubt clouded her resolve. If they crossed paths, would she find compassion or just a stranger's dispassionate gaze reflecting her own discord? The chorus of raindrops turned chaotic like her muddled emotions as she neared the sung lullaby, feeling frayed and vulnerable. If he could soothe the storm echoing in her mind, just maybe she could find courage to face her familial estrangement and the relentless office pressure suffocating her spirit. For in that crucible of anxiety and pursuit of power, the very words of those melodies whispered an aching truth: connection could shift destinies. Would she have the strength to lean into her discomfort or fold under the familiar weight of ambition? As she stood there, the dissonance waging war in her heart, she prepared to knock on the door of destiny itself, teetering at the edge of a decision that would alter everything. Tom finished his last sweep of the lobby, the rhythm of his movements almost meditative amidst the raging storm outside. As he cleared away the remnants of the day, the scattered papers, the coffee cups half filled with lukewarm dregs, his mind wandered, unexpectedly drawn to thoughts of Emma. Her presence had always seemed larger than life, and tonight, that frailty within her, that haunting solitude he'd sensed in her office, stirred something within him. Could his lullabies reach her heart? He paused, his mop still in hand, contemplating the nature of their worlds. His was one of solace, hidden in the shadows; hers thrived in the thunder of boardroom conflicts. There was a pang of envy. Her title as CEO radiated power and prestige, while he clung to a humble identity as a janitor, a role that had long offered him comfort and simplicity. But beneath the surface of that simplicity, something smoldered. He had aspirations. Music once filled his heart with dreams of touching lives beyond the sterile walls of the law firm. Meanwhile, Emma stood outside Tom's janitorial closet, heart racing as she grappled with the emotional storm raging within her. The lullaby had shifted something in her. What had she misinterpreted about her life, her choices? Every ticking moment unraveled yet another thread of her carefully stitched ambition. This encounter, she realized, could be pivotal. She needed to confront the truth of herself. The relentless pursuit of success had dulled her ability to connect, leaving her feeling tragically isolated. With a deep breath, she knocked softly, absorbing every layer of hesitation echoing in her mind. She felt almost unworthy of this moment, this connection with someone who derived such gentleness from a life that had taught her hardness. The door opened, and Tom stood there, his expression surprised yet curious. His mop rested against the wall, forgotten temporarily, as if the storm outside had shifted entirely to this uncharted terrain between them. "Emma," he murmured, unsure how to navigate this new role of confidant. She was a CEO, after all. Had he misunderstood the significance of his lullabies? I heard you singing," she admitted, her voice shaking at the vulnerability exposed. The sheer candidness of her confession caught him off guard. In that instant, the barriers formed by titles and reputations felt flimsy, almost laughable. Here they were, two souls bound by a longing for understanding. The rawness of her admission struck him, revealing the depth of her struggles that mirrored his own. "Your voice, it brings me comfort," she confessed, eyes flashing with urgency. "Lately, I've lost touch with the things that used to matter to me. It's as if I'm trapped in a storm that never ends." Tom felt an indescribable connection, a pull that transcended his ordinary role. It was the moment he had long yearned for, a reason to step beyond the confines of his work and embrace the unsettling urge to share his deeper self. "I sing to remember that simplicity matters, to find strength in soft places," he replied, gauging her reaction as he took a tentative step closer. She absorbed his words, contemplating what they truly meant. Could the lessons hidden within his lullabies guide her to reclaim her lost connection? As the rain battered against the windows, she sensed that perhaps they both needed to confront their storms not as a CEO and a janitor, but as two individuals caught in the fierce winds of personal conflict. Suddenly, a plan crystallized in Tom's mind. "Would you consider singing with me?" The thought emerged, bold yet vulnerable, as his heart raced in anticipation. Emma's eyes widened, fear mingling with curiosity. In that moment, they stood on the brink of unraveling layers long since corked and restrained. Could this unexpected alliance reshape their lives? The storm outside raged on, matched only by the whirlwind of emotions drawing them closer. It was the beginning of uncharted territory, an extraordinary intersection of their paths, one they couldn't turn away from. But with that realization, doubt crept back in. Was it wise to let the world see their vulnerability? Tom waited for her response, decisions lingering in the air thick with uncertainty, the melody of possibilities intertwining with the echoes of their fears. Would she take the leap? Tom held his breath, caught in the fragile web spun by their unspoken fears and aspirations. The silence stretched, thick with potential. Would she step forward, or retreat back into the safety of her world, one of meetings and measures, statistics laden heavy with expectation? Emma's brow furrowed, her internal conflict palpable. The enormity of Tom's suggestion loomed before her, akin to standing at the edge of a cliff. If she took that leap, if she sang with him, what part of her life would be exposed? Would she be met with ridicule or empathy? The voice of 100 boardroom critiques whispered in the back of her mind, urging her to reconsider. Yet, the memory of his lullaby, gentle and stirring, called to a part of her that yearned for authenticity. I don't know," she finally replied, her voice barely a whisper. "What if I forget the words? What if I sound terrible?" The fear seeped through her defenses, revealing vulnerability she usually kept tightly laced. Tom's heart raced, sensing the walls beginning to soften. "You won't know unless you try," he said, his tone steady yet encouraging. "It's not about the perfection of the song. It's about the moment, about finding our voices again." He bravely stepped closer, a gesture of openness. In that moment, something shifted within Emma. She recalled the countless hours spent poring over spreadsheets and reports, the exhaustion of maintaining an image of unyielding strength. This was an opportunity to reclaim that lost connection to herself, the joy, the carefree spirit, the ability to be unabashedly human. "All right," she said, emboldened by the glimmer of connection. "Let us try." A smile broke across Tom's face, illuminating the room. "Choose a song," he encouraged, his excitement infectious. As they began to explore scrolling through lyrics on Tom's phone, Emma found herself selecting a tune that had once been a favorite from her childhood, a simple, sweet melody that spoke of hope and friendship. It felt right, almost like a promise to rediscover parts of herself she thought were lost. The vulnerability was still present, yet now it felt like a shared endeavor instead of a solitary dive into the unknown. Tom positioned himself beside her, their voices tentative yet slowly resounding with warmth through the small closet. As they harmonized, the tension began to lift, replaced by laughter and surprise as they stumbled through parts, their connection growing more effortless with every note. In that process, Tom discovered there was a natural rhythm to their teamwork. He was no longer merely a janitor, but a collaborator weaving something beautiful together with a woman who commanded boardrooms. The song began to fade, gently drawing to a close, leaving an echo that lingered in the air between them. With their voices still hanging, there was a newfound revelation. Tom could feel an ember igniting in his heart, signifying more than just a moment, a possible shift in narrative for both of them. "See? That wasn't so bad," he said, catching Emma's eye with a mixture of pride and cheekiness. Yet beneath the lightness, an unsettling thought loomed larger for both of them. This shared experience had stirred something deeper, a desire for connection that extended beyond music. What would happen when the thrill of this moment wore off? Emma glanced at Tom, finding herself torn. Should she pursue this unforeseen bond that brought her to life, or encase herself back in armor fashioned from corporate shields and past regrets? As storm clouds finally began to clear, revealing the stars above, she felt a shift. The stakes had been raised. The timing was perfect for new decisions, but this revelation only surfaced more profound questions. How could they chart new paths forward together? And what awaited them outside, where all of their fears and the world lingered, waiting to challenge their vulnerability once more? "Tom," she began cautiously, the gravity of the conversation yet to come palpable in the air. "What if this is just the beginning?" Emma drew in a breath, the air thick with anticipation, as Tom's gaze locked onto hers, an unspoken agreement hanging between them. The evening's fleeting magic had ignited something raw and fragile within her, challenging the carefully constructed barriers she had adhered to for years. What if this was the beginning of something remarkable? A chance to redefine not just her relationship with Tom but also her understanding of herself? "Do you think we can actually sustain this, whatever this is?" she asked, her voice steady but laced with uncertainty. The fear of stepping into unfamiliar territory nudged at her instincts. Challenged to uncover the richness of connection, she faced the initial hesitation with a flicker of curiosity. Tom leaned back slightly, a thoughtful expression crossing his face. "That depends on us, doesn't it? Are we willing to explore it further? We can't keep this moment locked away in here." His boldness was infectious, igniting a determination that surged within Emma, albeit mixed with trepidation. What was she afraid of? Emma sifted through layers of her professional life, where every decision was calculated and every interaction meticulously constructed. The multiple accolades she'd acquired over the years hung heavy, yet they felt oddly hollow now, a churning sense of dissonance echoing in her heart. Navigating wealth, power, and expectation had shielded her from her own humanity for far too long. Tom's voice broke through her musings. "Let us start with small steps. We both want something different, right?" He paused, waiting for her acknowledgement. "You've got this vibrant energy that the world desperately needs to see. You're powerful, Emma. You don't have to hide that." The unexpected compliment flowed through her, igniting her long-dormant aspirations. Was it possible to reframe her narrative? From a stoic CEO focused on leading others to a person who sought to be led by her heart? What if she allowed herself to be vulnerable? Maybe I do want something more, she admitted softly. Maybe I want to open the door that I've kept locked. I've chased success for so long, almost obsessively, but it has led me to feel isolated. Tom inclined his head, understanding etched in his features. Isolating yourself isn't living. His words hung in the air, an undeniable truth that struck an emotional chord within her. Could she really become someone other than the relentless executive who de-locked herself away from intimacy and feeling? A surge of excitement bubbled up within her, mingling with fear's skeptical whisper. As they stepped timidly into another shared song, melodies swirling like a new beginning, Tom's voice became her guide, anchoring her resolve while liberating her spirit. For the first time, she allowed herself to forget the parameters of her role, concentrating on connection rather than competence. Yet, beneath her growing confidence, tension still simmered. What if her emerging authenticity was met with resistance? How would her colleagues respond if she dared to step outside her corporate persona? As they transitioned from their first song into the next, Emma felt a weight lifting, her heart racing with the thrill of exploring uncharted waters. It could be exhilarating, but the potential backlash in her professional life loomed dreadfully on the horizon. Let us promise to keep being honest. No matter the outcome, she said eventually, looking straight into Tom's eyes, inviting not just collaboration but a pact. Deal, he replied, but neither of them could ignore the uncertainty shrouding the future they began to envision for themselves. Suddenly, Emma's phone buzzed, shattering the moment's clarity as a message from her assistant appeared on the screen. Urgent need for your review on the latest quarterly report. It's critical. The reminder of her daily responsibilities intruded ruthlessly, bringing her back to reality with a jolt. She chewed on her lip, the echo of her true self resting with the dread of reinforcing her past choices. Emma? Tom's voice was cautious as he waited for her response. She looked at him, feeling the weight of her impending decision. Could she maintain this newfound desire while upholding her professional obligations? Here's the test, she thought, her heart pounding. As she glanced back at the phone, two worlds clamored for her attention. Would she surrender to the familiar, or dare to embrace the messy beauty of transformation? Tom, can we really do this? She asked, the uncertainty creeping back in. The next chapter was waiting to unfold, and she had a life-altering decision to make. Emma stared at her phone, the screen aglow with her assistant's urgent message. In that instant, the vibrant energy of the moment with Tom felt distant, swallowed by the familiar weight of corporate expectations. She was entrenched in a space that celebrated efficiency over authenticity, progress over connection. Could she afford to ignore the obligations that had defined her for so long? Emma? Tom's voice cut through the fog of her indecision. His concern was palpable, an anchoring presence in a sea of conflicting demands. Bringing her focus back to him, she felt a surge of determination. I want to explore this, she said, nodding toward the possibility of what they could become together. It was a tentative embrace of change, another step toward breaking free from the restraints she'd meticulously crafted. But I need to handle this first. The words felt like a barrier rising between them. The prospect of returning to the office felt daunting, as if the fluorescent lights and muted tones would extinguish the spark ignited only moments before. Yet, a glimmer of challenge nestled within her hesitation. Could she navigate both worlds, the corporate and the personal? You could delegate it. Tom's suggestion was simple but resonated deeply, a tiny revelation that pushed her to reconsider her tendencies. The thought was radical, to empower others to shoulder some of her responsibilities. A part of her resisted, viewing delegation as a weakness, a failure of control. But the other part, one awakening to the potential for greater connection, thrummed with excitement. Could relinquishing control invite collaboration, enrich her leadership, and forge closer ties with her team? Right, delegation, Emma murmured, forming a plan. Perhaps it was time to trust her colleagues more, to view them not just as subordinates but as partners. Could she channel the strength she admired in Tom, someone who welcomed vulnerability without flinching? The decision felt monumental. A fundamental shift from isolating herself behind her position to engaging with her team might require vulnerability she hadn't known how to access. Uncertainty washed over her but was intertwined with liberation. "Okay," she said finally, meeting Tom's gaze with conviction. "I'll send a message. I'll delegate the report." "Great. That's progress." Tom's enthusiasm volleyed back to her, energizing the moment. With a decisive tap, she opened her email. Typing felt foreign yet exhilarating. She gave instructions to her assistant to review the quarterly report, collect input from the necessary managers, and prepare a draft for her approval. Every keystroke felt like shedding a layer of her old self. Breathing deeply, she emphasized in her note that this was a team effort, not merely a couple of tasks to be checked off. As her finger hovered over the send button, the weight on her shoulders began to lessen. This small act was an unburdening, a step toward a different kind of leadership, one that embraced collaboration rather than isolation. "There's no turning back now," she said, her heart racing with the thrill of the unknown. Tom leaned closer, matching her energy. "And that's a good thing, isn't it?" Emma smiled. This was a risk she was willing to take, a commitment to herself. In that moment, she allowed herself to envision a future where she could weave genuine connection into her professional facade, where respect didn't depend solely on her rigid authority but flourished within shared contributions. "I think it is," she breathed out, feeling the shift solidifying in her gut. Yet, as she felt the embers of her transformation, a flicker of doubt darted through her mind. What if her colleagues reacted negatively? Would they see this change as weakness? Could she truly balance her emerging self with her corporate identity? In an attempt to quell the rising tide of anxiety, she focused on Tom. "What if they reject this new version of me?" she asked, her voice threaded with vulnerability. "That says more about them than you," Tom replied, firm but gentle. "People often fear what they don't understand. It sounds like a perfect time to educate them by showing them a different side of leadership." Emma's breath hitched. The notion of teaching others through her actions was daunting yet liberating. As she watched Tom's unwavering confidence, she thought about his earlier words, igniting a new spark of courage within her. The next steps wouldn't be easy, but they bore the potential for profound growth. "Then let us see what happens," she resolved, that familiar exhilarating tension knotting in her stomach. As the evening wore on, she contemplated the unfamiliar territory she was treading, both in her personal life and her professional world. Emma couldn't shake the feeling that something significant was on the horizon. A wave of questions surged. What would her colleagues think? Who would she become through this process? "Tom, I feel something shifting within me," she whispered, almost to herself. Little did she know, the next morning would catapult her into an unexpected confrontation with her past, a figure from her career who would challenge her commitment to change and test her resolve in ways she never anticipated. The morning sun filtered through Emma's office window, illuminating the muted tones of her surroundings. The fresh scent of brewed coffee wafted in, mingling with the tension that hung in the air. Everyone buzzed about their tasks, each whispering successively louder as if to drown out the uncertainty of the day ahead. Emma sat at her desk, fingers poised above the keyboard, the echo of her last decisive act still resonating within her. She had delegated a task, a seemingly minor revolution in her management style, but doubt clawed at her as she awaited her team's first steps into this collaborative terrain. What if it fell apart? What if they expected her to reclaim the reins? Just then, her assistant, Sam, knocked and entered with a serene smile. "Morning, Emma. Great news. I got the initial feedback on the report. Everyone contributed. It looks promising." Emma's heart leaped. "Really? How did they respond to the idea of collaborating?" They were excited. Many appreciated the chance to voice their perspectives. Sam's enthusiasm was palpable, but Emma's thoughts danced with skepticism. Was this a genuine change or just a fleeting moment of excitement? She felt she had cracked open a door to a new world, yet her fear lingered. Was she prepared for scrutiny? Great, she forced a smile, masking the trepidation within. Let us meet as a team later to discuss. Absolutely, Sam replied, leaving a trail of positivity in his wake. Emma leaned back in her chair, ruminating on Sam's words. The seeds of doubt sprouted again. Could she trust her team? How would she navigate the intricacies of these new dynamics? These thoughts entwined with her growing resolve, spurring her to challenge her own beliefs about leadership. Yet, as she bravely mapped out the day's agenda, a familiar figure appeared in the corner of her eye. It was Evan, her former boss and the architect behind the reputation she had so diligently built. He exuded authority with every step, possessing a commanding presence that demanded attention. Emma, he called out, as if dragging her from her contemplative haze toward the stark reality of her past. Nice to see you. I didn't expect you to take the lead on that report. Are you feeling okay? His tone was thick with skepticism, yet veiled as concern. Emma's stomach turned at the condescension veiling his words. I'm doing well, Evan. The team's collaboration will yield better results, don't you think? She replied, trying to assert her newfound principles, but the volume of her voice seemed to falter. Collaboration is one thing, but leadership is about decisiveness. Are you certain you can still command respect if you let your authority slip? His challenge pierced through her bravado, tugging at the insecurities she had wrestled with throughout her career. Emma felt the weight of his words pressing down, squeezing the air from her lungs. Yet within the panic, she noticed how tightly his view clung to antiquated ideals. Was that framework still relevant? I believe there are multiple forms of leadership, she countered, her voice growing firm. One that doesn't revolve around just control, but also trust and support. Evan's smirk was barely perceptible, his eyes dancing with amusement. We'll see how long that lasts. Just remember, it's a dog-eat-dog world out there. With a dismissive wave, he turned away, leaving her simmering with indignation. As his footsteps faded down the hall, the implications of their exchange began to settle. She could feel the biting truth. To transform, she needed to shed the remnants of his influence and stand in her power. Emma leaned into the confrontation. This was a defining moment, a crossroads. Would she slip back into old habits or continue stepping into this collaborative role, despite Evan's disbelief? At that instant, a surge of clarity washed over her. She wouldn't become the leader Evan expected, nor would she break under the weight of his scorn. This was her journey, a fragile tapestry beginning to weave itself anew. Taking a deep breath, she turned her focus back to the tasks at hand. The team meeting loomed, and she was determined to harness that energy, even encouraging those new voices that dared to contribute. Her resolve hardened, the tension shifting within her. Perhaps today marked not just a meeting, but the inception of something greater. A substantial metamorphosis hinged on her ability to face the pushback head-on. As she prepared, a flicker of doubt began to echo again. If she faced Evan again, what would she say? Would her newfound belief in collaboration withstand his cynicism? The hour of reckoning approached, and uncertainty still lingered. Emma's heart raced not from fear alone, but from the thrill of possibility. The stage was set, and she was about to challenge everything she had once accepted as the status quo. As she gathered her thoughts, it was clear, this would not be just a meeting to discuss a report. It would be a testament to who she was becoming, and she was ready to redefine what that meant. Behind every wall built by Evan's undermining beliefs, a new path awaited her. It was time to sharpen her voice and rise beyond the limitations he had tried to impose. Could she reshape not just her leadership, but also her company's culture? With each step toward the meeting room, Emma sensed that the true test of her journey lay ahead, and the stakes had never felt so high. The meeting room felt charged with an undercurrent of energy as Emma stepped inside, a palpable mix of excitement and trepidation swirling in her gut. The long, polished table gleamed under the overhead lights, each chair seemingly beckoning for a voice to fill it. As her colleagues settled in, Emma took a moment to survey their expressions. Some wore masks of anticipation, while others revealed apprehension. This gathering was more than a chance to review a report, it was an opportunity to redefine the very dynamics of their work culture. "Thank you all for being here," she began, her voice steady as she cleared her throat. "Today isn't just about discussing our recent project. I want to talk about how we collaborate moving forward because I believe each of you brings something invaluable to our team." A murmur of surprise rippled through the group. Emma felt both exhilarated and apprehensive. She had taken on the role of facilitator rather than dictator, and the shift was palpable. She noticed the wary expressions replacing some of the initial enthusiasm. Was her challenge against tradition too abrupt? Emma pressed on, her thoughts coalescing into a clarity that surprised even her. "I want to hear your thoughts, your ideas. We need to embrace vulnerability and innovation if we're going to grow." As she spoke, she observed how Sam nodded enthusiastically, encouraging others to lean into the discussion. Curiosity sparked in the eyes of some team members, a flicker of hope that their voices might indeed be welcomed. The first hand raised was Lily, a soft-spoken member of the team who often retreated into the background. "I think we can all contribute more creatively if we're allowed to brainstorm without fearing criticism," she said shyly, glancing up at Emma for reassurance. "Absolutely, Lily. That's a crucial point," Emma replied, feeling a surge of pride for her colleague's bravery. "What if we started each meeting with an open brainstorming session? No bad ideas, just creativity flowing without barriers." As the conversation opened further, Emma felt the tension begin to lift not just from her own shoulders but from the entire room. Ideas began to flow, a symphony of voices united by shared purpose. With each contribution, Emma recognized the power that lay dormant within her team, and that realization invigorated her. Yet amid the euphoria of collaboration, Evan's earlier words skulked at the edges of her consciousness, a dark chorus doubting her every move. Would this encouragement to share give way to chaos? Could she sustain the very trust she was aiming to build? Then, as the dialogue flourished, Sam raised a crucial question: what can we do to support each other outside of meetings? How do we ensure this doesn't just stay a momentary change? The room held its breath, awaiting Emma's response. Her mind raced, searching for ways to assure them that transformation was not just a flash in the pan. "I think we could create small groups that meet regularly," she suggested thoughtfully. "These groups could focus on different projects, or even personal development. It's essential that we cultivate a culture where each of us feels seen and heard, outside the boardroom." Empowered by her team's reactions, nodding heads, eager exchanges, Emma felt exhilarated by the momentum they were garnering. But with each moment spent building this newfound community, Evan's shadow threatened to loom larger. What about obstacles she hadn't predicted? What if she lost control? A sudden chill swept through her, the anticipation of conflict rearing its head again. She couldn't afford any missteps. As she wrapped up the meeting, Emma's heart surged with optimism and something akin to dread. This endeavor wasn't merely a departure from convention for her, it represented a pivotal internal struggle against her own instincts shaped under Evan's regime. "Let us implement these strategies next week. Remember, this is an ongoing process, and I encourage you to hold me accountable," she said with resolve. The team applauded softly, and it struck Emma that they were not merely applauding her, rather, they were expressing solidarity, ready to stand with her through this evolution. As they filed out of the room, an urgent question whispered in Emma's mind, demanding an answer: could she maintain this momentum, or would Evan's skepticism ultimately undermine her progress? With the weight of her ambition now more palpable than ever, she knew she was standing on the edge of something monumental. She could reshape not just her leadership style, but the entire team's potential. But fear and exhilaration intertwined with each thought, pushing her further into the unknown. Returning to her desk, a surge of determination channeled through her. She would have to confront her past, dismantling the fears tied to Evan's influence. The real journey was just beginning. Emma felt a shift beneath her resolve as she prepared for the coming battle, not just for her team, but for herself. And with every moment ticking closer to that confrontation, she understood that each step forward was not without its sacrifices. The echoes of Evan's doubts reverberated in her mind. The time had come to face not only him but also the insecurities that threatened to rear their heads again. What would prove stronger, that resilient voice within or the looming fear of failure? Emma was about to find out. Emma sat at her desk, the soft hum of the office around her shattered by the sharp ring of her phone. It was Claire, the human resources manager, checking in to discuss the upcoming meeting schedules for the small groups she mentioned. As they exchanged ideas, a hint of vulnerability crept into Emma's voice. "Claire, do you ever feel like changing the culture of a workplace is like sailing into a storm?" "Absolutely," Claire replied without hesitation. "You have to navigate carefully or risk capsizing. But storms can also lead you to new horizons if you're willing to weather them." Emma absorbed that analogy, feeling the weight of responsibility shift within her. She was steering the ship now, and the course was set, but the winds of doubt howled fiercely in her mind. Later that afternoon, she made her way down the brightly lit hallway, her footsteps a rhythmic reminder of the resolve she was trying to feel. Each office she passed buzzed with energy, both inspiring and intimidating her own journey. She had begun to engage her team, yet a portion of her felt like an imposter, her newfound initiative a mask over an insecure leader. Arriving at the coffee station, she found Sam pouring himself a cup. His infectious enthusiasm was hard to miss, a counterbalance to the anxiety coiling in her stomach. "Hey, Emma," he greeted with brightness. "The team loved your ideas today. I think we're really onto something." "Thanks, Sam," she managed with a smile, but inside, doubt rattled. What if their excitement didn't translate into sustained engagement? But what if they revert to old ways? "I can't drive this alone." "Just keep being you," he offered, leaning casually against the counter. "People respond to genuine leadership. You're building trust with every meeting." Easier said than done, Emma thought, focusing on the cup in her hands. She remembered every time she had shied away from asserting her voice, and the frustration surged anew. They deserved a leader unshackled by fear. "Tell me," Emma ventured, her heart racing. "What do you think makes a truly effective team?" Sam paused, pursing his lips in thought. "It's when everyone knows they can express their thoughts without judgment, right? I feel that growing here, but it has to come from you. Just be open with us. Lead with vulnerability." His words ignited a flicker of courage. Emma's shoulders relaxed slightly, taking a risk meant being genuine, even when it scared her. After their conversation, Emma retreated to her office, her fingers dancing restlessly on the desk as thoughts spiraled. What if Evan confronted her about the changes? That he questioned her competency not just as a leader but in making decisions that deviated from the norm? An impending meeting with him loomed large on her calendar, the date glowing ominously like a red warning light. She had to brace herself. There was no avoiding it. Evading his skepticism wouldn't lead her, or her team, anywhere. Gazing out of her window at the bustling street below, the bright chaos reflected a complex reality. Maybe this was her moment, not just in her career but in her personal growth. She could step into that meeting not as a subordinate, but as an innovator challenging conventions. Emma sighed deeply, readying herself for the uphill battle. A shift had begun, and it started with her belief in collective capability. For every moment of panic that loomed, she could channel it. Self-doubt or determination, this choice lay squarely in her hands. As she jotted down notes for the meeting with Evan, a realization dawned: confronting his pushback wasn't simply a professional hurdle, it was a test of her character. She thought about Sam's words about trusting her instincts. The clock ticked steadily toward the meeting time, and Emma's heart thudded in her chest. Would she emerge from this confrontation bolstered, or weakened? This pivotal moment wasn't just about convincing Evan, it was about asserting her role as the leader she longed to be. As she gathered her papers to leave, a surge of resolve flooded through her veins. She would not back down. The time for negotiating her worth was over. The tides were shifting, and she intended to ride them straight through the storm. As she stepped into the meeting room, a spark ignited inside her. The moment of confrontation was upon her. Would the answer remain unknown, or would she find her footing as a leader amidst the chaos? The conference room was stifling, the air thick with an unspoken tension. Emma entered, and for a moment, time slowed as she met Evan's unwavering gaze. His reputation as a formidable executive preceded him, and seated around the table were stakeholders who held the balance of her project in their hands. They represented both the potential for support and the threat of skepticism. "Thank you all for joining," Evan began, his tone impassive. "Let us get to the point. Emma, you requested this meeting to present your vision for a cultural shift in our workplace. What exactly do you propose?" Heart racing, Emma tapped her notes, rehearsing the words that had swirled in her mind for days. She could almost hear Sam's encouragement whispering beneath the cacophony of her worries. "I believe we need to implement a more inclusive approach within our teams. Collaboration over hierarchy, idea sharing over directives," she stated, her voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through her. Evan's brow furrowed slightly. "And you think increasing openness will translate to better performance? How do you intend to measure that? We can't risk productivity on nebulous ideals." Emma took a breath. "We can establish metrics for employee engagement and innovation. Regular feedback sessions and collaborative projects will show us the impact of this shift," she replied, confidence surging as her words gained momentum. "I've already spoken with team members who feel stifled by current practices. They want to contribute, and I believe we can tap into that motivation." His eyes narrowed, evaluating her every word. "And what makes you think this will work?" "In my experience, people tend to resist change. Tradition holds weight here. But transformation starts with trust," she countered, feeling emboldened by her own resolve. "If we create a space where employees feel heard and valued, they'll not only adapt but thrive. I can lead this initiative to ensure that our team reflects both the old and the new. Change doesn't have to feel like a storm, it can be a breath of fresh air." Evan leaned back, arms crossed, his expression inscrutable. "You talk of trust, yet what measures will you take when resistance mounts? When confiding in you doesn't yield results?" Emma's heart raced. This was the moment she had anticipated, the crux of her battle with disbelief. "I will not let them face consequences for being honest. If they fear repercussions, I'll create a safe outlet for discussion, a no retaliatory clause, for example." Her voice softened, her sincerity palpable. "I believe people want to do well. All they need is to know they can express themselves without fear." Silence descended on the room like a weight, leaving her exposed, vulnerable yet resolute. She could see the others processing her words, weighing her vision against Evan's skepticism. A tremor of uncertainty flickered within her, but she quashed it, reminding herself of Sam's confidence and Claire's analogy. "You frame it well," Evan finally said, revealing a hint of intrigue, "but leading a cultural change is fundamentally ambiguous. It requires proof, adaptation, and sometimes, failure." "I'm ready to embrace that," Emma declared, her heart swelling with conviction. "Not every endeavor yields success, but that's how we learn. I'm committed to this mission and will adapt as needed." The tension in the room softened slightly, but Evan was still a stalemate. "You have a lot of work to do. Convincing me is one thing. Convincing the others is another challenge entirely. They'll want empirical results. If you're serious about this, you need to prepare for that scrutiny." His words were a gauntlet, a challenge layered with frustration, yet Emma felt a glimmer of opportunity beneath them. Confrontation wasn't the end point, it was merely the gate that would lead her closer to her goals. Then that's exactly what I'll do. Gather support and prepare metrics. I'll show them these ideas can yield results. I accept the challenge, she stated, feeling the warmth of commitment settle in her core. Evan nodded slowly, a hint of respect flickering in his gaze. Then let us see what you can prove. His tone signaled a hesitant alliance but delivered a clear message that her journey had just begun. As she stepped out of the room, the gnarled knots of fear began to unravel within her. She had taken a stand, faced an antagonist, and survived a pivotal confrontation. Yet, deeper challenges and expectations loomed ahead, demanding that she prove her mettle. What she hadn't anticipated was the aftermath of her stand, the reactions of her peers. Would they rally around her vision, or would doubt still linger like an unshakable shadow? Emma realized a new storm was brewing, one that would test her resolve even further. With each step toward her office, the weight of what lay ahead felt both exhilarating and daunting. She was not merely sailing but ascending, and every wave that approached whispered the possibility of shifting tides. Would she navigate the tumultuous interactions with her colleagues, or would her leadership falter under growing scrutiny? Emma's journey was far from over, and the ultimate test of her abilities loomed right around the corner. As the days turned into a whirlwind of meetings, Emma actively engaged her team in discussions about the cultural shift she envisioned. The atmosphere began to change. Ideas flowed freely, and the initial resistance slowly faded under the warmth of collaboration. Emma was witnessing a transformation. Her vision was taking root. Not only were her colleagues contributing creatively, but they were also becoming partners in a unified mission. Yet, an unexpected hurdle emerged. Despite this newfound enthusiasm, Evan's watchful gaze remained a constant reminder of the skepticism that still lingered. He attended meetings, subtly critiquing and questioning every initiative, using his influence to temper the energy in the room. Emma had made strides, but she needed to consolidate her gains and assert her authority as a leader. Then came the day she had been dreading, the quarterly report presentation to the executive team, where Emma would present not just numbers, but the qualitative impact of her team's new collaborative approach. Faced with a stage set for scrutiny, she felt her confidence waver. But the memory of Tom's lullabies, a gentle reminder of the strength found in vulnerability, filled her mind. Preparing herself in front of the mirror, she reminded herself, "This is who I am now. I will confront doubts head-on, both Evan's and my own." On presentation day, the room buzzed with anticipation, a mix of doubt and excitement painting the air. Evan took his seat, a confident smirk barely concealed under his poised demeanor. Emma fixed her gaze on the slide projected before her, a well-crafted outline of data and reflective anecdotes from her team. "Thank you all for being here," she began, her voice steadier than she felt. "Today, I am here to share not only our performance but the significant shift in our team culture that has improved our output and morale." As she transitioned into the impact metrics, Evan's eyes narrowed, projecting an air that implied skepticism. "And these are anecdotal. Where is your empirical data?" he interjected, purposefully raising tension. Emma's heart raced. She had anticipated pushback but felt the warmth of her team's support behind her. While metrics are essential, qualitative data reveals invaluable insights into employee engagement and creativity, she countered, her voice gaining strength. "Here are testimonials from team members on how this approach has inspired them. They feel that their voices matter." She began sharing stories, real, relatable accounts of team members writing about their newfound freedom to innovate, how they felt more connected and less isolated, and how ideas sparked enthusiasm among their peers. The room shifted, people leaned in, connecting with the human elements of her narrative. Evan's expression was one of muted disbelief, yet a flicker of doubt began to creep into the corners of his fortified stance. Emma noticed the subtle shift of her colleagues' expressions. They were engaged, nodding in understanding, and that collective energy traveled around the room like a current, energizing the audience. "While we are achieving targets, this new culture is yielding dividends that go beyond mere numbers," Emma continued, her voice unwavering. It fosters an environment where everyone feels safe to express themselves and take ownership of their work. Essentially, it cultivates loyalty and encourages innovation. As she concluded, the applause from her fellow executives rang in her ears, drowning out all trepidation. She had done it. She instilled strength through vulnerability, sharing her vision while opening the floor for her team's voices. Evan cleared his throat, his expression more thoughtful now. "You've made some compelling arguments, Emma. I appreciate the insights. However, future initiatives will need clear benchmarks for success." She nodded, encouraging his adaptation to the transformation. "Absolutely, Evan. I welcome your guidance in establishing those benchmarks together. This will not be a solo effort." After the meeting, Emma felt an unwavering sense of validation. The applause solidified not only her achievements but underscored her growth as a leader. She was no longer just a CEO fulfilling expectations, she was the bridge uniting every voice in the room with her own. Days later, as she stood in front of her team, the palpable energy was electric. They had rallied behind her vision, and together, they were rewriting the narrative of their workspace. "Thank you all for believing in this change," she began. "We've become not just colleagues but a real team. I'm excited about where we are headed." Her voice resonated with the fresh cadence of leadership built on trust, reflection, and shared aspirations. They were willing to put in the effort to sustain a culture that nurtured authenticity. Tom's lullabies no longer lingered just in her memories, they echoed in her leadership philosophy, resonating deep within the fabric of the team culture she had fostered. As she glanced at the faces before her, she felt solid confidence pulse through her. This wasn't a mere achievement, it was a manifestation of who she had become. Emma had conquered her vulnerabilities, allowed herself to be vulnerable, and in doing so, had embraced her rightful place as a leader who understood that the most profound impact often starts with a simple acknowledgement of our shared humanity. In that moment, she realized this journey was only just beginning, built on the foundation of courage, collaboration, and the understanding of true strength. Echoing in her mind were Tom's gentle words, the lullabies that had sparked a radical shift. Their journey together wasn't merely a whimsical encounter, it had been a pivotal moment in her transformation that ignited the recognition she so deeply sought. While challenges would arise, there was profound satisfaction in knowing she had grown into a leader who could navigate the uncertainties and triumph over them. Emma had not only achieved a professional milestone but had broken free from the constraints of her past, embracing a fulfilling path ahead. The sky was limitless above, a tapestry of opportunity ready to be explored. And there, under that expanse, she felt at peace, armed with the strength of her experiences and the relentless power of authentic connection. This was the moment, commitment to continual growth, connection, and achieving new horizons. And the journey of influence, collaboration, and transformation would continue to unfold, igniting others along the way. Now is the time for your journey. Don't wait another moment to step into your own transformation. This channel will guide you with the stories and lessons shared for personal growth. Subscribe immediately to our channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories that will change your life. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and show your support for the power of personal evolution. Comment your reactions and theories, let us know how this story inspired you. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion that may spark their own journeys. You need to subscribe now, because only true fans of personal overcoming stories understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions.